guys, I'm Serena Poon, and welcome to my show, Serena Lives. As a celebrity chef, nutritionist, and entrepreneur, I'm incredibly passionate about helping others live their best life through methods I call culinary alchemy, which is the magic of combining education, integrative and functional nutrition, and healing intuitive energy. So, with each episode, I'm going to share with you the inspiring stories of some amazing people, incredible entrepreneurs from all different backgrounds who've all overcome personal challenges in their journey to get to where they are today. And today, I'm truly honored to introduce to you an absolute titan in the media and publishing industry. She is a world-renowned editor, producer, television and radio talk show host, and as I've said, she has been referred to over and over as the most successful woman in publishing. She's produced over 100 best-selling books, and she's the head of Regan Arts at Phaidon Press, and she's graciously made time to be with us here today. Welcome, Judith Regan.
Hi, Serena.
Hi.
It's so great to be here with you.
Know. Thank you so much for being here today. It's such an honor. It's just such a treat to have you here and share your story. And, you are absolutely the definition of fierce and indomitable, not just as an entrepreneur, but you are as a mother, you are a grandmother, you are this pillar of strength in your family, and also I feel like for all women. So, before we dive into how you balance and manage all of this, I would love for you to share with the community a little bit about you and your story and your background.
Well, in terms of balancing things and, being strong, I think that everybody has it within them. And no matter what your challenge is in life, you just keep going. Like my philosophy has always been, you just put your foot in front of you and you just keep moving it. And eventually you kind of get in the groove and you overcome things. So whatever happens in a lifetime, and I've had all kinds of mountains to climb and setbacks and peaks and valleys and whatnot. And, it's a journey and it's not the destination, it's the journey. And once you start to understand that all of life is just living every minute to its fullest, you have to learn to enjoy it. You have to learn to enjoy the good times and the bad times, because I think a lot of times people don't enjoy either. Right.
And they don't focus on something else. Or
they're focused on getting there or, getting the job or getting the promotion or getting the guy or having the kid or getting the kid into the right school or being in the right house or whatever the fantasy is. And I think that you have to enjoy where you are, wherever that is. Right.
Being present in that moment.
Yeah. And I've had, not exceptional heartache, the same heartache that everybody has, because everybody's life is filled with one horrible thing after another. And it's how you view it. Right. So.
And did you know that from the beginning? Did you learn that? Was there something that happened where you're like, okay, this is not the biggest thing, I can manage this, put that step forward? Or is that just, maybe you're one of the lucky ones and you just kind of knew, like, going into the workspace?
I think I certainly, the older you get, the less you know, right? The less you realize you know.
Right.
And I think I started off knowing everything, and now I realize I actually know nothing. That's a sign of wisdom and maturity.
Right.
But the truth is, you learn to accept things. You learn that it's never as bad as you think, it's never as good as you think, and you get through things. Because human beings are built to survive things.
Yeah.
We're really resilient, amazing people.
Yeah.
And the most horrible thing that you could ever imagine, you will survive, right? And you have an obligation to survive, not just for yourself, but for the people around you.
Right.
Years ago, I published a book by Dennis Prager, who's a talk show host and a rabbi, and he wrote a book called Happiness is a Serious Problem. And in it, he said, you have a moral obligation to be happy for the people around you. That you can't just, walk around with a mopey face and be depressed and be sad and indulge yourself in the, oh, life is so horrible and woe is me and I'm such a victim mentality.
Right.
So
I agree with that.
my whole life I've tried to live by those rules. I think I had a really tough mother who was incredibly difficult and challenging.
Right.
And I learned at an early age, there were 5 children in the family. I had 2 older brothers and 2 younger sisters, that A, you had to fight for the food on the dinner table. B, if you didn't get all A's, you weren't going home because my mother would, I still have my mother in my head.
Right, oh gosh.
My mother's going to kill me, right? I'm 65 years old and I still think my mother's going to kill me, and she's still very much alive. And I think that she was the first challenge, right? Just like, how are you going to please this woman? There was nothing you could do to please her. And so I had a really difficult, challenging, aggressive mother. And, for some people, that's a good thing. And for some people, it's not such a great thing. For me, it was fine because it presented a challenge that I had to overcome. And so I learned at an early age, and actually quite enjoyed at an early age, like having a big challenge and overcoming it. And even now, after a certain amount of success, and I have children and grandchildren, and I've had, wonderful achievements and so on, I like to have challenges. I don't like the status quo. I am a person who wants another mountain to climb. And if that mountain, has been climbed, I want to climb another one. So I actually enjoy it when people create a challenge for me. Right? Because I like overcoming it. It gives me great satisfaction. I like learning new things. I like learning about new things. And I think I've lived my life that way. And I certainly found a career in publishing, being a talk show host, and working with people to tell their stories and share their information. That gives me that opportunity to learn something new all the time, to be constantly challenged. And personally, I've had every heartache known to mankind, right? Every possible heartache, from
You've had some
horrible men, the terrible things of the men. I've had a child die. I've taken children in and adopted them who were dealing with really big challenges, far greater than anything that I've had to deal with. Yeah, lots of things. But everybody has challenges, and I always say we have first world challenges, which we're lucky that we have resources. We have an education, we have electricity, we have running water. We have really great resources living in America. So there is no woe is me, and I have never been a victim at all. Ever, never. No matter what, I have never been a victim.
I love that. That's going to be our soundbite, to remind people.
Yeah, and I've never thought of myself as a victim. And no matter what's happened, I've had lawyers and accountants steal my money. I've had, men empty my bank account. I spent 10 years in litigation in my divorce. Every imaginable crazy thing that could happen. I've been fired, I've been smeared, I've had crazy things happen. And everything in the end, I've been blessed because A, nothing ever kept me down. B, all of the people who really did terrible things in my lifetime came to justice, right? They either went to prison, they got horrible diseases, they died. Like all the people around me who did really horrible, bad, conniving, vicious, evil things. Karma kind of takes care of itself. Like how you live every day of your life is who you become. Right. And so, my children love me. I have great relationships. I have wonderful friends. I have a beautiful life in a lot of ways because I've built those relationships over many, many years. I've cherished them. I've nurtured them. I care about them. I have good relationships with people. And so the bad people who either tried to steal from me or, really did some crazy things, terrible things happened to them. Most of them ended up in prison.
Wow.
Yeah,
you've got some amazing
It just kind of
stories.
happened. It happens that way. So if you wait long enough, you think that if you do right and you do good, it won't matter, but it does.
It always does.
It does, because in a lifetime, it adds up to something, right? And it's also in the doing of those things, there is great satisfaction, right? So you take a journey that is filled with being fair, being kind, being generous. You give as much as you can, you do as much as you can. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't, but in the course of a lifetime, it's a much better way to live your life and not to worry about all the crazy things that are just roadblocks that you have to go around or jump over, or overcome. You just do it. Just do it. Don't complain. Don't whine. Don't worry about it. Just do it. Just keep moving, right?
It's like that's the best kind of advice.
That's what I've done. I just keep moving.
You know, I mean, can you share a little bit of some of the things that you've already gone through? I mean, you've had such a
Which one do you want to know about?
colorful career. I mean, first of all, look at these books that you brought with us today.
Yeah.
You've published everybody's books. Give us a few
I
names.
published a wide range of people, from Francis Ford Coppola. We brought The Godfather notebook here today. This is the 50th anniversary of the novel The Godfather, which was published 50 years ago this month.
Wow.
And the movie was made a couple of years after that. And of course, he was the director and co-wrote the script. And this notebook is his notebook, Francis Ford Coppola's notebook of the making of The Godfather and actually how he made it.
Oh, wow.
So he took the actual manuscript of The Godfather, Xeroxed the pages, and then went through it and divided it into 50 scenes. And this is the breakdown of those things.
Wow.
And he's all of his notes in the book, and it's pretty remarkable.
That is. It sounds amazing.
And the making of The Godfather is an incredible story, because all the things that he had to overcome. They didn't want Marlon Brando. They didn't want Al Pacino. There were so many fights with the studio, so many battles inside the making of The Godfather. That was a really painful journey for him to make that film, and now it's regarded by many as probably the greatest film ever made.
Yeah, I mean, the movie's incredible.
And at the end of it, I think he was totally shattered and broken, and was so happy it was over, and just so happy to be done with it, because it was such a traumatic experience for him. And that story in itself is an example of somebody who, like, he just kept going. He just kept going, and he got it done, and he produced this masterpiece that he at the time didn't even realize was a masterpiece. In fact, when the movie opened in New York, it was snowing at the premiere, and he was in Paris. He tells the story. He was in Paris doing a rewrite of a film, The Great Gatsby, and he was like, how am I going to find material? And he was worried about that. And his wife called, because he wasn't even at the premiere of The Godfather. His wife called and said, there are lines around the block. Thousands and thousands of people have shown up. This movie, and it was an incredible instant hit, and the movie reviews were beyond glowing. You know, the best movie ever made instantly. And he had no idea that was going to happen, because he had to get back to work, by the way. He was like busy trying to figure out how to fix this script.
Wow.
He's an amazing story, an amazing man who just kept going.
Yeah.
You know?
You must have so many.
I worked with Howard Stern, and I've worked with many, many novelists, Wally Lamb, Gregory Maguire, who wrote a little book called Wicked, which became, you know, major musical. I've worked with doctors and historians and health people, and amazing.
How do you choose which books? How do you choose which authors?
I mean, it's a
Is there a thread?
Part of it is, there's no thread. Part of it is instinct. Part of it is, oh, this is something new. I try to do things that are new and original. I might be interested in something new. Sometimes it's my interest, and sometimes it's just a commercial decision. Sometimes I think this is a book that people will read and get excited about, and, you know, this will work. Sometimes it's just a labor of love. A lot of my labors of love have turned into very successful books, thankfully. You know, when I first read Wally Lamb's novel, She's Come Undone, years ago, it was a submission. I read a few chapters, and it was incredible. And I used to publish mainly nonfiction, and it was one of the first novels that I took on. And it just, I had to have it. It was the most incredible thing. And this is decades later now. You know, that book has sold millions of copies. And, you know, regarded as one of the greatest works of American literature. So sometimes, like the labors of love, Oprah Winfrey, we got lucky. She started her book club after I published that book, and then she picked 2 of his books.
Yeah, I remember that.
I know this much is true, and She's Come Undone. And sometimes you get lucky. You know, I've worked with a lot of designers. Rachel Ashwell created a little store called Shabby Chic, which was in LA, and then she opened a little one in New York, and I met her and decided we should do a book, and it turned into a huge franchise. Kelly Wersler, another designer, turned into a huge franchise for her. So, you know, along the way, you just discover new things, new voices. You know, now that we have the internet and everything's on the internet, and people want everything for free, it's a changed business, and a very challenged business today.
Especially with Amazon, right?
With Amazon and their predatory pricing and their methods of doing business are very tough. But it's a challenged business, but people are still reading
Yeah.
and still consuming, but they're consuming things in different ways. And so
Right.
that presents a whole new set of challenges. So it's always something,
Right.
right? And
Right.
then your body falls apart, and then you have to deal with that.
Well,
It all goes south, you have to deal with that. It's like you have to develop a sense of humor.
Yeah.
You just have to develop a sense of humor because
Yeah.
it's like pretty absurd.
Well, did that sense of humor help guide you through some of these, traumatic,
Always.
periods?
You have to laugh at it.
Yeah.
You really do.
There is, and of course, you probably know, I'm probably going to ask about that interview with O.J. Simpson.
Yeah.
And, last year when they finally released it, you were interviewed and you had said it was traumatic to watch it again, to almost trying to relive what was a very traumatic period. And I mean, I can't imagine, and most people can't imagine that kind of experience. And that's, how did you, what were the tools that you used? How did you get yourself through that? Because I guess trauma is different for every person, right? And everybody can use, advice and tools that other people have used to kind of get themselves through their own personal dramas and traumas. So, how did you get through that? It was tough.
When I interviewed him, it was like a 5-hour interview, and it was on a Sunday afternoon. And while I was doing the interview, this was supposed to air on Fox that week during sweeps. The Fox truck was outside cutting promos of the interview.
Okay.
Because it was a Sunday and it was going to air like that Monday and Tuesday, so there was not a lot of time. They were sending them to New York to air first on the Fox News channel. As I walked out of the interview, I immediately started to get smeared for doing the interview.
Okay.
Yeah, so internationally it became, oh my God, she interviewed O.J. Simpson. This is so horrible. This is so horrible. And it turned into a really negative story. No one had seen anything except for the promo, which was amazing.
And the interview itself.
And no one had seen the interview.
Was that traumatic for you?
The interview itself was very traumatic because he was this close.
Right, yeah.
And you have to watch the interview to see just how disturbing it is.
I tried to find it actually.
It's on Fox.com.
Oh, okay.
If you look on O.J. Confession, you'll find it. It's a two-hour special that Fox ended up doing 12 and a half years later. They aired it. But I did the interview, and it was so difficult to sit there while he told this story and not react to it, because I knew if I reacted to him, he would shut down and not talk about it. So as I was talking to him, I had to keep my
poker face.
And he revealed, really disturbing things about how he felt about Nicole, and his version of how he assaulted her was fascinating as well, because he wouldn't say, I took the bat and smashed her car. He'd say, the bat hit the car. He talks about going to her after the funeral. He went to her grave and cursed her and started yelling at her in the cemetery. Why didn't you listen to me? I told you this would happen to you. You see his anger. You see, how disturbed he is. And
you had to stay grounded in yourself.
I had to stay grounded sitting there listening to him. And it was really disturbing. And it's a really disturbing interview. It's a very disturbing interview because it's kind of a textbook look inside the mind of a guy who abuses women. He's a textbook abuser. How he thinks, how he feels like the victim, how he blames her for everything. He takes no personal responsibility for anything he's done. And then when I walked out of the interview, I got fired. I got fired. They told me they'd never run the interview. And I ended up suing them, and I prevailed. But 12 and a half years later, I get a phone call saying, oh, by the way, we've decided to air the interview. I said, well, that's nice.
And then
they did, and then I had to revisit the whole thing.
Right, of course.
And I was on the panel of the interview that I did. And it was just a bizarre situation. It was very bizarre. But Christopher Darden was there, who was one of the prosecuting attorneys. And he was shocked when he saw the interview because it's a confession.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so clear when you see the interview that it's a real serious profile
Yeah.
of an abuser.
Mm-hmm.
And B, it's a confession.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of acclaim after people actually had a chance to see the interview. A lot of psychologists. I had an NCIS investigator who sent me a note saying, how did you keep that poker face?
Yeah.
And who trained you to do that kind of an interview? And I said, my mother. I had to keep very still.
Right.
My mother.
That training started from a way long time ago.
It's a lifetime of training.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a fascinating story, and there's there's many more angles, but the whole story of OJ doing the interview, getting fired over it, and then they ran the interview, and it was critically acclaimed, and people really thought it was amazing. And when they had a chance to actually see it, instead of like the spin that was put on it, it was pretty amazing. And so, that's just another example of...
You've navigated that so gracefully, though, and that's like, I guess I'm trying to ask, like, how, what did you do? Like, what tools did you have? I mean, what?
I stayed still.
Yeah. And just let that frenzy just die down around you.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean,
what are you going to do?
Yeah.
When there's a tsunami, you either go with the flow or you drown.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You have to accept certain things that you can't control.
Right.
There are things that happen in life that you just have no control over. The only thing you have control over is your reaction to things and how you behave. That's it. You can't control what other people do. You can't control what happens in the world. You can only control what you do in the world.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
And hopefully by doing good and, doing right, you affect other people to do right and to do good.
Yeah.
Doesn't always happen that way, but, you hope. No, and that's all you can do. So despite what everyone else is doing, it's always a good idea and a good policy to behave humanely.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's such great advice. And, I know that people have heard it before, but you are just living, thriving proof of that's just stay in your own lane, really, is what it is, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't always stay in my own lane, but I try to be as good as I can, whatever the issue is. You try to maintain your dignity through this thing called life, through all the heartache and the setbacks and the, life is very unfair. It's really unfair. Bad things happen to good people all the time.
Right.
And sure, it's unjust. And by the way, I'm not the kind of person who just sits back and lets things happen. That's not what I'm saying. I do believe, and I am definitely the kind of person who will fight for what's right.
Right.
I definitely will. I don't believe in injustice. And I am a fighter. So when things are unjust, I fight back, and I think you have an obligation to, but I try not to fight unnecessarily.
Right.
Right. You have to choose your battles.
Right.
And you have to choose them well. Right. And I don't like, child abuse. I don't like, there are things that just kill me. And, I will give it my all to fight to make it right. And I think it's important to do that. I think when you see that there's injustice, not just in your life, but in the world around you,
100%,
that you have an obligation to speak up and to do something about it, right? So I'm not like a shrinking violet by any means, right? But you have to know when to be still. You have to know when there's an impact that you can make. You have to know when to fight. You have to choose your battles. And those are like instinctive things. And, it comes down to what really matters to you. What has value to you? What do you really care about? How do you want to fight those battles? And do you have time, energy, money? Do you have the resources to fight those battles, given all the other responsibilities that you have in life? I did pretty well with my battles when I chose to take people on, companies on, or whatever. But for me, it wasn't whether I was going to win or lose. I had to do it. Right. That's it. I just had to do it. Whatever the outcome is, the outcome. Right. And I wasn't going to be destroyed by it, but I had to
stand up.
I had to set. Yeah. And also not just for me, but for other people.
Absolutely.
I went to court for 2 years to get custody of these 2 children who were being neglected terribly and abused. and
Whose kids
someone
were
had
they?
to stand up for them because nobody was standing up for them, right? They weren't going to school, they weren't getting medical treatment, they were
Wow.
really being badly treated. And, you know, I spent 2 years and a lot of time and money and effort to try to give them a life where they could see that good things are possible and where they could be successful.
That's incredible that you did that. I didn't
But everybody
realize
should
that.
do that.
Yeah,
you know?
no, you're right.
I mean, everybody
You're
should do
absolutely
that.
right.
And it's, you know, I don't deserve any accolades at all for doing it. You know, they were my niece's 2 children. They were in a really bad situation. And my kids were grown and gone, and I downsized my apartment, and I have a very large family, and for whatever reason, nobody else was willing to do it, which upset me terribly. But I was the one. I was like, then I'm going to do it because somebody has to do this. This has to stop. You know, this has to stop. The neglect and the abuse was so awful, and child protection did nothing to protect them. It was really, really bad. I mean, I could go on and on and on about the agencies and what they do and don't do and how overwhelmed they are, and they have too many cases, and I'm not blaming them because they're also overwhelmed and can't handle it and don't know what to do. But I took the children and had to fight a custody battle with somebody who was neglecting and abusing them, and they had psychiatric care, they had their teeth, they had rotten teeth, they weren't going to school, the 7-year-old couldn't read or write. I mean, it was just one horrible thing after another. And after they lived with me, it was a Pandora's box of abuse and neglect that was revealed to me.
Wow.
And you know, when you take a 7-year-old child, he doesn't know who his father is. He's been around people who are just drunk all the time, don't take him to school, watch violent porn, horrible, horrible things that child had to deal with. It was my job and obligation to show him that he didn't deserve any of these things, that none of it was his fault, and that he was going to have a fabulous life.
Yeah.
Which is what he's having now.
Wow, that's beautiful.
He's having a fabulous life. And you know, people, if there's one thing that anyone who is listening to this interview can learn, it's this. If you see a child in need, or if you want to have children, there are a lot of people who want to have children and they go, oh, I need to have my own children. You know what? He's as much my own as my other biological children, and his sister is as much my own. I love them all the same. You can love other people's children as much as you love your own.
Yes.
Right? And sometimes more. You know, and they can give you so much joy.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they are amazing children, and it's an inspiration to see that you can come out of a hole in the ground where you have been so degraded as a human being and turn into this amazing, loving, inspired, artistic, musical, loving, amazing human being.
Wow.
You know, it can happen. It can happen. And so I feel like if we see people like that and they're in our circle, you need to reach out and do something.
Absolutely.
You know, and there are a lot of foster children, there are a lot of children available for adoption, and people are afraid to do it. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, because it's a beautiful thing, and you can go on a journey that you could have never imagined.
Yeah.
Never.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That really is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't even know that, and that is truly a beautiful message. I could talk to you for hours. There's so much. You're just a wealth of information and knowledge, and you brought these amazing books. And wait, do you have your own? When are you going to author your own
please.
book?
I don't have time to be telling.
I mean, that would be volumes, I think, with all the stories and adventures you've had. But this you did at Regan Arts, right?
Regan Arts.
And we're going to have to wrap up soon, so let's let everyone know where they can, reach out to you if they want
Wherever
to.
books are sold, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. You can take a look at what we have on reganarts.com, REGAN arts.com.
And on social?
The Art of the Hollywood backdrop is a really wonderful gift book.
Gorgeous.
And this is the sleeve that it comes in. And this over my shoulder.
Yeah,
there it
right
is.
there.
It's a very beautiful, amazing book. We just reprinted it.
It's
'cause
absolutely
it's been,
gorgeous.
We sold out, and of course, The Godfather. This is the 50th anniversary. And we have lots of other books.
I mean, hundreds of like the best books out there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Serena.
This was so fun. I really loved having you here. And, you know, maybe one day you can make time and come back.
Thank you. It's been great.
Thanks so much, you guys, for joining us today. This is Serena Loves TV, and we'll see you next time.